however, I said, oh.
So quite a range.
Yeah, so I said, what do they do for school when they're on the road? Because in Saskatchewan, if they came here, we'd be quite interested in, English as a second language for them, or keeping up the grades. And he says, there's no education on the road.
They don't study.
They don't study.
No.
And that's another thing that we could maybe not teach them, but influence them. Like these young ladies are going to play hockey for 6 or 7 years, and then what are they going to do? It's the same old story here. Yeah. Get your education, get your sports, but education first. So, it might be a little something that we could at least make them have a look at, because these kids are not being educated on the road.
Now you got federal background. Is there any federal connection in this yet? Canadian federal?
Is there any federal connection? No, there's no federal connection actually. Not yet. And we don't need it.
No.
I think having the backing of the premier and the backing of the mayor and the president of the University of Regina
is a pretty good start.
A pretty good start. And to have them put things, and I mean, I know politicians, as you know, and to have the two politicians on board to write letters and put the name to this is not only that, the premier was in Shanghai to open up an office with the Premier of Alberta and British Columbia.
Right, the New West Partnership.
Yeah. And so then he was on his way to Beijing doing other business. And I asked him if I could put a dinner on for him. And so we put a dinner on at the Beijing hotel in the Coconut Room, which was, as you know, was the hotel in Beijing for these diplomatic type of things. That's where the Nixon ping pong thing took place. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, hockey summit type thing. And so anyway, we got to dinner there. We had people from travel agency, the Chinese National Travel Agency, which is the largest travel agency in the world. Last year, Canada in July opened up, and China opened up the doors to the Chinese being able to come here as tourists. So we had him there, we had a sports guy there, we had business people there, power, nuclear power, and the premier sat at this table. And I'm telling you, this guy is, I don't need to build myself up to anybody. However, I've seen politicians for years. This guy is good at what he does. When he spoke at that dinner of these 14 guys in front of him, he made it clear to them that Saskatchewan wanted to do business with China and wanted to have this hockey team.
The reason I asked about possible federal involvement, like it or not, there are still issues involving China, involving human rights.
Yes, there is.
Could this be a hindrance?
How could helping women's hockey, Chinese women, young women, how could it, showing them Saskatchewan, showing them democracy, showing them freedom, how could that in any way be a hindrance?
No. Okay.
It can't be. I mean, my goodness gracious, if they all go back and say, we were in Saskatchewan, what a great place, the people live great, they have all this freedom, they choose their politicians, they vote, how could that be a hindrance? If we ignore China and completely ignore them and say, no, we're not helping out anyway, even with women's hockey, then we're doing a disservice to ourselves and a disservice to the Chinese.
Yeah. University of Wisconsin, there might be a connection there.
My goodness, yes. 2 days ago, I get a phone call. My company's called CanAsian Development, and what we do is we try to put businesses together, Canadian businesses together with Chinese businesses, or vice versa, and it's working out very well so far. We as you say, we'll have 5 trips in less than 8 months to China, and every time you go there, you make connections. However, I get a phone call from the University of Wisconsin. Now, why is that important? Well, they have a women's hockey team there, and the coach of that women's hockey team,
the U.S. team, right? Yeah.
The coach of that hockey team was the coach of the American women's national hockey team, and they said, "Look, we would love to have an exhibition game with this Chinese national team. We would like to help you out in any way we could. We will set up games in Minnesota, in North Dakota, whatever we can do to help you get the Chinese women's national hockey team here and to improve their skills. We will be there to try to help you." And I was amazed. So, it got that far. So
Take me back to that first trip. Was it last? It was last March.
Yeah, last March or somewhere around there. Yeah.
And just sort of being in this strange place to you with so many people. What was the feeling?
Well, I grew up with 13 brothers and sisters, so a crowd was not a problem. However, when I got off the plane at the airport in Beijing, there was a crowd of people. The next day, I had to get a train somewhere. To another city, to Shenyang, in north of Beijing. And I went to the railway station in Beijing, the main railway station. And I don't believe I've ever experienced anything like it in my life. The crowds were...
Chock-a-block.
I mean, it was, you stood there, and if you didn't walk in the direction they were going, you were carried. And literally, it was no question. I got on the wrong train for some reason, ended up in the wrong city. And I wanted a quick story. Ended up in the wrong city. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I was standing on the corner. This is a small city, 18 million people. And I saw what I thought was a bank. True story. And I figured a bank should be able to speak, somebody should be able to speak English. So I went into this bank. Nobody could speak a word of English. So they told me to sit down. And somehow they told me I sat down and waited. And these two people came out and they took my bag and said to me, come. I went out the bank door and there was a car. They put me in the back seat of the car, put my suitcase in the trunk, and took me to a hotel. Checked me into the hotel and wrote a little note in very bad English, and probably better than mine, and saying, we'll pick you up at 7:30 tomorrow morning. So I was up. They picked me up at 7:30. They brought me to the train station, and they put me on the train to the right city where I was supposed to go, because I had a ticket. They could recognize that. And I said to myself, as I was waving to them, seriously, like a movie. I was on the train, I waved, they were standing on the platform, not one word of English was spoken. And they took care of me, unbelievable.
Wow.
I must have looked desperate.
Something about green hats. There's a funny story going along with green hats. We got to hear this.
Okay, so I have fedoras. I'm known for wearing hats. Of course, I'm not wearing one now. I'm known for wearing hats. So I have 3 or 4. I have a black one, a brown one, a green one. So the night before the trip, it was my first trip to China, and so I was up early, and I said, I'm taking my brown fedora, because that'll, right? Okay. So I reached in the closet, and I took the green one and put it on. And proud as could be, it's a nice looking hat. And anyway, so I get to China, and I get picked up every morning by somebody. And usually it's 2 women who pick you up, and they take you to meetings, and everything is all set out. So the first one I come down, I'm all dressed up, got my green fedora on, and the 2 women look at me, they giggle, and they look away. And so 3 or 4 times of this happening, I said, every time I come down in the morning, you're laughing at me. Why are you laughing at me or giggling? Oh, we can't tell you. And they turned red and everything, and they turned away. And I said, you got to tell me. I need to know, because it's very obvious I have to do it. They said, your green hat. And I said, well, what about my green hat? Oh, can't tell you. So I said, you wait here. So went back up to my room, and I Googled ask.com, why do men not wear green hats in China? And up it came immediately. It took no time whatsoever, in big bold letters. Men do not wear green hats in China because it tells the community they live in that the woman, his wife, is having an affair on him. Well, right? Everybody from a 1-year-old to a 100-year-old in China,
they know it.
If they knew nothing else, they knew that green hats meant that. Even John Deere changed the color of the hats in China. They have yellow ones, not green.
So,
amazing.
So Saskatchewanians who go to China,
don't wear your Rough Rider hat.
Don't wear your Rider toque.
Exactly. Well, a toque could be okay. It's just a hat.
Okay.
Toque is okay. Just a hat.
But not like a Rider ball cap or something.
No. Excuse me. But I did go around after, everywhere I went, looking to see if I could buy a green hat anywhere in China, and I could not.
Huh?
No.
Amazing.
Couldn't buy a green hat. But China is China is a place people should visit, and the human rights aspect of it, of course, it's there, and of course everybody knows it. However, you won't understand them unless you go talk to them, and they won't understand you. And so to say we should stay away from China, or we shouldn't help them out in any way whatsoever, I believe that notion is wrong. You cannot understand the people and what they're doing unless you talk to them and meet them in their own home.
When are you likely to know if this is going to work? If the Chinese women are going to come here to play hockey?
You know, I'm saying now, I'm going to go from this point on. I'm going to go visit some corporations here in Saskatchewan and see if they will help sponsor, because they don't rank high on the let's give them money. The team doesn't. The Chinese government doesn't give them a lot of money. So we're going to need to maybe be able to help them out financially a little bit. And I think if some corporations got on board and offered to help out, with the buses or with boarding or with whatever, anything, right? To help these teams, they're going to help women's hockey. They're going to help the Olympics, and they're going to give us a foothold in China. So I hope when I go to them, they say they'll take a real good look at it. When will we know? I'm going back to negotiate with the bureaucrats
in January.
Yeah. And the bureaucrats, it's a huge bureaucracy, and it doesn't work the way it works here. There's several moves you have to make. You have to speak to so many different people in Beijing to get to the person you actually really need to speak to.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that, and that's our next move, is because the coach and the manager are going to set up these meetings for me in Beijing in January, and I hope to come back with a more positive. I hope to actually go there with a more positive envelope in my hand, saying, "Hey, we'll help you this way, this way, and this way." And I hope for them to say, "Hey, this is good for China. This is good for Chinese women's hockey. Let's do it."
Sounds exciting. Good luck.
Thank you, Raj.
Thanks. Take care, pal.
Absolutely, buddy. Bye-bye.
Greg Ashley is his name, and we're at the University of Regina, and I'm Roger Currie. Thank you for joining us. That's our program for this week, and we love to hear from you, by the way. Currie's Corner at accesscom.ca is the email address. So drop us a line if you care to. Also, a reminder that you can hear me on radio 5 days a week on 620 CKRM. I do the morning news, and the radio version of Currie's Corner every weekday morning at 8:35.